cheat reps may be more optimal than going slow and controlled. Why the fuck do I claim this? Natural UK bodybuilders, especially Keith West, have crazy fucking back development. And guess what the fuck they all do? Cheat rows. Success leaves clues. To explain my point, we'll first have to look at resistance and strength profiles. A resistance profile is the relative challenge of an exercise throughout the entire range of motion. So in dummy terms, where in the range of motion is the exercise going to be the hardest or the easiest? For example, in a dumbbell curl, the hardest point in the exercise is the mid position, due to the moment arm of your elbow and the free weight being the largest in that position. Strength profile, the ability of a muscle to produce force throughout its contractile range of motion. Your muscles are the strongest in the lengthened or stretched position and the weakest in the shortened or contracted position. The latest research shows that stretch is the most hypertrophic part of the entire range of motion. But why is that so? Humans are 30 or 40% stronger in the eccentric or in the stretch part of a movement. When looking at strength and resistance profiles while taking stretch mediated hypertrophy into consideration, you want to match the strength profile of an exercise with your muscle strength to produce force. Tension is largest when your muscle is the strongest in the stretch position, and the closer you get to a full contraction of a given muscle, that tension of that exercise drops off. That is the perfect resistance profile, which we want preferably on every single exercise. That is why stretch biased movements are per se more effective, not because there's some magic tool, but they match your muscle's natural strength to produce force. Now, what the fuck does that have to do with my claim that cheat reps are more optimal than slow and controlled reps? On some mid to shorten biased exercises, like in a dumbbell lateral raise, a dumbbell curl, or a bent over row, with slight cheating you can bypass the unfavorable resistance profile of those exercises and therefore overload much more weight on the eccentric, which is by default more important than the concentric part of the movement. You get much more stretch and much more tension in that stretch position when you cheat just a slight bit. Stretch mediated hypertrophy is more optimal until it confirms that the old school bros who've been cheating on the rows have been right all along. Now that we got the cheating part out of the way, let's talk a bit about the tempo on the eccentric. So controlling the eccentric super slowly doesn't have any additional hypertrophic benefit. As long as the total rep duration is somewhere between 2 and 8 seconds, every single rep, whether it's 2 seconds long or 8 fucking seconds long, yield the same results. Slowing down the eccentric for extra hypertrophic benefit doesn't make any sense, but it could be beneficial for injury prevention, as you don't want to fucking yank around the weights. So have some control and intent when entering the eccentric part of the movement, but don't go too slow. Some exercises like a bent over row, where you want to cheat a bit to even out the resistance curve, the faster eccentric may be more beneficial as it gives you more momentum, a better stretch reflex, so you can even out the resistance curve more smoothly. As not slowing down the eccentric actually exaggerates that final stretch part of the movement, as the tempo of the weights dropping actually accumulates if you don't intentionally slow it down, which means that your muscles have to work even harder in the stretch position to reverse that weight with the stretch reflex and going back to the eccentric part of the movement. Then there are other exercises like a dumbbell preacher curl or a hack squat where there's tons of tension in the lengthened position. On those type of exercises, slowing down the eccentric and really feeling that stretch is more beneficial. To get deeper into the topic, I'll now discuss back training to show you an example of when cheating or not cheating could be applied. So most back exercises have a completely unfavorable resistance profile. If you don't have a fancy machine that emphasizes the lengthened position, if you're doing a normal free weights row, a cable row, a lat pull down or a pull up, every single one of those exercises is a shortened biased movement. So every single back exercise is literally working against your muscles' natural strength profile. Intensity, training to failure, mechanical tension is the main driver of hypertrophy. And if you fail every single back exercise in the contracted position due to the unfavorable resistance profile, you cannot go to true muscular failure and drive as much hypertrophy on every single fucking set if you stop at technical failure when you cannot complete a full rep. If you cannot fully contract your back on a row or a pull down, you have not entirely exerted yourself throughout the entire range of motion. You have much more left in you in the rest of the range of motion. So again, by slight cheating, evening out the resistance curve, you can go closer to failure and drive more hypertrophy that way. And additionally, you can do partial reps to failure if you cannot complete a full rep. But I'll talk about partials in a minute. Let me cook for a second though. So what should you do now? Should you cheat? Should you do partials? Or should you just do normal fucking reps? Let me guide you. So mid to shortened biased movements where you want to hit the whole back, like in a bent over row, it is more optimal to use a little bit of oomph to really get the best out of that movement. but there are some other exercises where you want to really isolate the lats, for example, on a single arm cable row, where being intentional and maybe performing slower reps may be more beneficial. On those type of exercises, to bypass the resistance curve problem, you can just do partial reps to failure after hitting technical full contractile failure. You should definitely incorporate some slow and intentional reps and some slight cheat reps to get the best of both worlds. Cheating being beneficial doesn't only apply to back training, but to several other muscle groups or movements, where the most common exercises are the hardest in the mid to shorten position. For example, on biceps, cheating would be beneficial on normal barbell or dumbbell curls, but you shouldn't cheat on an exercise like a double preacher curl or a Bayesian curl, where the most tension by default is in the stretch position. For the side delts, you could cheat on dumbbell lateral raises, but be more strict on the cable version. Now the unique case for traps, if they can hold a fucking 500 kilo deadlift, don't you think that doing slow and controlled squeeze type of shrugs with 60 kilos would add any mass on your frame? I think the fuck not. Just do heavy rows, heavy deadlifts, or power shrugs to overload the eccentric and stretch the fuck out of your traps. Standardizing your cheat is beneficial. You don't want to do a slight cheat on rep 1 and flap around in space on rep 10. Apply the same amount of oomph on every single rep and don't deviate from it too much. Of course, towards the end of the set, that cheat will automatically look a bit different because you have to even out the resistance curve even more than at the start as your muscles get fatigued throughout the set. But again, if you're not a complete monkey, you will know when you're cheating too much. I was fucking tired when I recorded this video, but I still hope that you learned something from it. And if you did, make sure to watch another one right here.